Hello everyone, Hayden here. So today we're going to be going over my presidential predictions for this year's election between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Now, we're going to go over the electoral map here. And now I'm going to be using polls and genuine facts, alright? Or not facts, but what could be considered as facts. I'm not trying to use my own personal opinions to sway this necessarily. I'll be using my best non-biased sources and polls to give a representation of who could possibly win each state and then overall the election for the United States. So we're going to go right on in, and I'm going to go ahead and label all the safe states that are the same, like California, Oregon, Washington. Those are always Democrat states, such as also New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Vermont. So those states are always blue, you know. You get states down here, all red. Almost made it blue, that would have been interesting. So these states are always, pretty much like 99% of the time, they're gonna go red. Now Maine, or Nebraska here actually, could, which I probably predict over here, the 3rd district, they probably actually go blue. I think, we'll see, we'll go over it. You always can't forget Alaska down here. Okay, so now that we have the whole country labeled here, we're going to head on over to the state of Nevada first. And currently, Nevada is polling at about 48% in favor of Joe Biden, with only 39% supporting President Trump. And so, Nevada typically is a Democrat state, but it does have the potential to sometimes to go red. So we're going to put it in very likely to become a Democrat state, of course. Now, head to the state of Arizona. And Arizona, you know, one of the states that President Trump has promised to build a border wall around, which has not happened whatsoever. And on the border with these 4 states here, they've only built certain sections, and they're pretty much just the same, a continuation as the former border wall that we've already had around the border. So nothing really new on that part from there. Now, the current polling from just the beginning of this month puts Joe Biden just about 3 points ahead of Donald Trump in the polls. And so Arizona could go either way, but as of now, it looks like Arizona, with its 11 electoral votes, may in fact go to Joe Biden. So we're going to head on right over to New Mexico next. And New Mexico is polling very high with Joe Biden. It is very likely Joe Biden will win this state. It is extremely likely, actually. So we're going to put New Mexico there. Same sort of category, Arizona. No, nothing with the wall. Now the state of Texas actually is very interesting, because recently Joe Biden has been polling very high. Some polls even put Joe Biden ahead of Donald Trump in the state of Texas. But overall, it appears that Joe Biden will probably lose the state of Texas to President Trump. So we'll put Texas in the likely to Republican category. So one of the states very pro, but a lot of these urban areas and the liberal areas around the country, you know, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, all these the cities, they are very coming out. They're coming out in numbers. Now the state of Minnesota, you know, it's been in the news a lot recently because of the gruesome murder of George Floyd, sparking many protests around the country and cities. People coming out to protest police brutality, and the current President Trump, has not done really anything to combat this except send in troops and more police. He's calling for more police to beat down the protesters brutally. He's calling them thugs. It has not helped him, especially in the states like that, in the large cities around the country. And Joe Biden, as well, he's not innocent in this too. And he's called for a lot of more police back in the day, more aggressive tactics, all those kinds of things. So neither have really been very good with handling the anti-police situation in the country. But overall, Joe Biden is polling much higher in Minnesota compared to Donald Trump. So Donald Trump will most likely lose the state of Minnesota to Joe Biden. Now currently Joe Biden is polling higher in Wisconsin by about an 8-point margin with Joe Biden. And so it is likely the cheese state here will most likely go to Joe Biden. Now Michigan is a very interesting state, another one of the Rust Belt states. Lots of automotive industry here. And recently, with the closures of the country, even before the coronavirus epidemic, the people of Michigan have been losing their jobs to other countries, Mexico, and other countries around the world with automotive jobs. So as of right now, what I'm seeing here is Joe Biden is 10% higher in the polls than President Trump. Even from multiple different sources, even Joe Biden is most likely going to win the state of Michigan. It's very interesting, in fact. Now, we saw recently, months ago, with the anti-lockdown protests, anti-mask protests, and Michigan by people on the right protesting her and storming the Capitol pretty much. So it's very interesting to see the it's interesting here to see the Republican dominance in the state as well as the Democrat dominance in the state. But with polling, it's most likely Joe Biden will win this state. Now, out of the state of Ohio, typically Ohio is a Republican state, but sometimes it does go Democrat. And as of right now, it is about 48% Joe Biden to 46% Donald Trump. It is very close. It's polling just barely over with Joe Biden. Months ago, it was more in favor of President Trump, but given the current situation, it is slightly in favor of Joe Biden. But it could go either way. There is no definite answer for the state of Ohio. It could go both ways. But as of the current polling, I'm going to just barely give it to Joe Biden. Now, if we head on over to Pennsylvania, it is currently Joe Biden has about an 8-point lead in the polls overall with President Trump. Even from the beginning of the year during the epidemic to now, Joe Biden's polls has stayed consistent. In fact, actually, Joe Biden has gone down a little bit in Pennsylvania, but he is still in the lead by a good margin, by about a 5% margin at the lowest. So it is very likely Joe Biden will win Pennsylvania, and if he wins Pennsylvania, according to this, what I have here, he would win the presidency with just this alone, even if he lost all these other states. But that is given Ohio goes to him, which will maybe not happen. But we're going to continue on. We're going to figure out, let's see, how could Joe Biden win this election? Now, in the state of Georgia, Georgia has not voted Democrat since 1992, so it is very likely that it would be a Republican state. But given the current polling out of the state, Joe Biden has about a 1.5 to 2% lead. In some chart, I'm at 4% in the lead for winning the presidency. Now, Georgia is genuinely a true toss-up state. With the state of Atlanta and all of that stuff happening down there, it is possible Joe Biden wins the state. So, given the polling, I'm going to give it to Joe Biden just by a very tiny margin. So then we move over to South Carolina, and South Carolina is polling high with President Trump right now. It is very likely President Trump will win the state of South Carolina, even given the high number of black voters that voted for Joe Biden. It's interesting to see this actually, because you can, given the high number of black people in the state of South Carolina, that his South Carolina voting would be much higher. But in fact, it's honestly not all that high. So it is very likely Donald Trump will win the state of South Carolina. Now, Virginia over here is a state that is very much likely to go to Joe Biden. It's polling extremely high with Joe Biden right now, but 51 to 39%, 10% lead, 12% lead. His polling is numerous higher. You get a 51% average with President Trump's 40% in Virginia. If President Trump wins Virginia, it'd be a big shock, honestly, to me. Now, New Hampshire, one of the first states to vote, as a matter of fact, is polling about 7% in the lead to 8% in the lead with Joe Biden. Overall, about a 9% lead with Joe Biden. So President Trump is very unlikely to win the state of New Hampshire with his 4 electoral votes, which may not seem that significant, but in the election, 4 votes can mean presidency or not presidency, such as with Al Gore versus George W. Bush. Now, Maine is a state that has 2 split votes down here, as you can see. And so Maine, I honestly predict the northern portion of Maine, District 1, will vote for President Trump, in matter of fact. But District 2, I believe, will vote for Joe Biden. Now, the state of Florida, my home state, is a swing state that votes whatever it feels like every time. And so Florida is typically a state that does side with the winner of the election overall. In the last 12 elections, Florida has only voted for the president wrong once. So at 11 out of 12, they have sided with the correct candidate for the presidency. So Florida is projected, as of right now, they are in it's about neck and neck, but in a lot of polling, at least a lot of the polling here shows about a 5% to even 9 or 11% lead for President or Joe Biden. So it is likely Joe Biden will win the presidency because of Florida as well as all the other states combined. So with this map here, it appears Joe Biden 366 electoral votes to President Trump's 172, unseating the incumbent, replacing the presidency with Joe Biden, and President Trump would be a one-term president, which there isn't only a few of these, in fact, in the whole country's history. So it's a very interesting. Typically, if a president wins one term, he gets a second term, and it's very interesting here, actually, if the President Trump does lose the election. Now, I try to be unbiased as much as I can, and I use the source for the most part here, 538, which is a unbiased poll. I try to do as much research on it beforehand to use it as a good source, and it is about a center-left poll, but just barely to the left. It's not a big deal. And most people, most websites, most people I watch on YouTube, most sources cite this website for their polls and their information. So I'll go ahead and link this website down in the source. Always get your information from unbiased sources. Like Reuters is a very good one. Don't go to Fox News. Don't go to Breitbart. Don't go to I don't know, whatever. Don't go to all these super biased sources. Get your sources from multiple sources, and if you have one source you like, go to a different one. Go to a second one. Go to one on a different side of your opinion. If you always listen to CNN, go ahead, Fox News every once in a while. If you only listen to Fox TV, go to CNN every once in a while. Get the other side of the information. You never know what you're getting fed. You could be getting something completely wrong or something completely true. So always believe in what you think, but make sure you fact check everything you read, because especially nowadays in 2020, you never know what you read if it's going to be true or not. So side with who you want. Make sure this year, if you're registered to vote and you're old enough to vote, go out and vote for who you believe, President Trump, if you think he needs a second term in the office, or if you think Joe Biden deserves the presidency because of his former vice presidency and his other political career. So if you feel like you need to go out and vote for who you want to vote for, go out and vote. Your vote needs to be heard. Don't go and say, oh, I don't feel like voting because it's not going to matter. It matters. Your vote matters, because look at Al Gore versus George W. Bush in Florida. Lost about 500 votes. So go out and vote. Make sure your vote's heard. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.